and we're over. Off we go.
Brilliant, thank you. Welcome. I was just saying a quick hello to the students of Deborah Abela who are sitting here live with me right here, right now. Welcome everybody. I'm very excited to be here. I'm not excited to have to look at my face. Is there any way I can not look at my face?
No, you have to look at your face.
Normally I look at the beautiful faces of young people in front of me, but today it has to be my face. We've got a very, very short session together. It's only 45 minutes long, and I've got quite a lot that I want to say about writing. Today I'm going to say the briefest little thing about me, just to add to what you already have been told, and then we're going to look at a video and a little bit of a PowerPoint, and then it's actually over to you. We're going to actually play with your ability to write stories, and I'm going to give you hopefully a few tips to make your story writing and your imagination even better than it already is. So I also have a bunch of questions that I've been sent in from Beechwood. Do we have Beechwood here today? Are they with us? So yes, hello Beechwood. I got all of your questions that you sent through, and I'm going to hopefully attempt to answer those as we go through as well. So you've already been told that I wanted to be a writer when I was 7 years old, and that was a question sent in from Javika as well. I've written 15 books so far over the last 10 years, and I wrote for Cheese TV Channel 10 for about 7 years. So altogether I've been writing for 17 years, and I think that question actually came from Emily out at Beechwood as well. I started though writing when I was 7, and then when I finished school though, there was something that happened to me that really convinced me that I wanted to be a writer. When I finished school and university, I decided you spend all this time in school learning about the world and how amazing it is, and all these really beautiful countries. And I lived in Sydney my entire life up until then, and I decided I wanted to go and see some of these countries that I'd spent all this time studying about in school. So I bought this huge big backpack nearly as big as me, strong big walking boots, and went travelling around the world for about 3 years. And I had loads of different adventures. I got stuck in a huge sandstorm at the top of Africa in the middle of the Sahara Desert. I got thrown in jail twice. Twice, by these men with these huge, huge guns. I woke up one morning on this big old rusty ship going right through the centre of Africa, woke up next to an alligator. I got harassed by monkeys who threw poo at me. And I got malaria and dysentery, two very awful, disgusting diseases, and I was almost traded for a camel by an ex-boyfriend who's gone now. So, after 3 years of having loads and loads of adventures and getting into lots and lots of trouble, I came back to Australia, and that's when I started writing my very first book, which is this one here, the Max Rainey Super Spy book. There we go. In Search of the Time and Space Machine. Now that is based on a young girl who goes on adventures all over the world, who gets herself into troublesome situations. And so that is kind of based on me and those adventures that I had while I was travelling. So, and then I've written those other books, some books about ghosts, some books about soccer, and my latest book, Brimstone, which is what we're here today to really talk about. So, what I'd like to do first though, is come over to this whiteboard here, so that everyone can see that. And what I'd like to do is talk about the 3 main ingredients that every single story has. So every story, when you're trying to think of a story, it has these 3 main basic ingredients. Now, of course, there are loads and loads of ingredients that go into making a story. But before you turn on your computer, before you even pick up that pen to plan your story or to work out how it's going to end, you need these 3 main things. So I'm going to ask Deborah Abela first, since we're here. What do you think one of those main things is that you need before you even pick up your pen to start writing your story? What do you think one of the main things would be? Yes. Yes. Characters. You need interesting, fascinating characters that your readers, when they pick up your book, just can't wait to find out what happens next. Now, I'd like to ask Beechwood. Does Beechwood have another idea? What could be my other 2 main ingredients I need when I'm trying to write a story?
Setting.
Beautiful! I think I heard setting. Thank you, Beechwood. You need setting. You need an interesting place, somewhere that your readers can't wait to delve into and maybe even wish they were there. Now, the third thing we need, and this is my favourite one of all, does anyone from St. Michael's have an idea of what this very third thing would be? We need characters in an interesting setting or location, favourite one of all, St. Michael's? Can you have a guess?
Storyline?
Even before the storyline, and in fact, in order to have a really interesting storyline, you need lots and lots of this third one here. Even before a title? Harriet? Even before the main story. Okay, I'm going to actually give you a little bit of a hint. It starts with T. Okay, St. Michael's, I'm going to turn you off for a sec. Thank you for all those lovely suggestions. I'm going to keep going with what this third word is, though. Can you see that? So it's something starting with T, R. Can anyone from Gaimea Bay tell me what might be my very important and in fact my favourite third ingredient of all? Every single story has this, and in fact without this third very, very important ingredient, you don't have a story. Every single comic, cartoon, every film that you watch, every game that you play has lots of. Oh, not quite. Sometimes it does. In fact, a lot of my books do. So not travel, but it definitely starts with T-R. Yes.
Trouble?
Yes. This is my favourite ingredient of all stories. Trouble. And this is what you need to be good at to be a writer. In all the 17 years that I've been writing, I've worked out that the most important job of an author is to make trouble. In order to be a good writer, you need to be good at making trouble. So, as I can see St. Michael's and I can see Gaimea Bay, who in those two classes are very, very good at making trouble?
Oh, come on.
St. Michael's, are you good at making trouble? Yes, okay, great. I can see, I can almost see them. That is what you need to do. You need to take characters, put them in interesting locations, then you need to make stuff go wrong. You need to make trouble. So what I'm going to do now is show you the trailer for Grimston. And I've got the trailer set up here on our smart board. So hopefully we're going to do a bit of a camera angle change in just a second and you'll be able to see the trailer. And hopefully you'll be able to hear it too. I'll just turn it up. I don't think it was very loud before. So, oh, and you can make it go from there. So this... Okay, so I'm hoping everybody heard that and saw that just okay. So that's the trailer for Grimston. So remember our three main ingredients, our characters, our setting, and our trouble just here. Now I want to start first of all by asking Corinda, what is the main trouble that I have caused in Grimston? So let's see Corinda pop up on my screen. And I want to know, when you're watching that trailer then, what is the main trouble that happens in Grimston?
The flood?
Yes, the flood. And in fact, I have to say, when I was planning this book, and a lot of people ask me how I planned the book, I actually started with the trouble. Some books start with characters, some books start with setting, but I started with trouble. And this is how it came about. I'm going to switch over now to a little PowerPoint here. And we're going to watch this screen here. So that's the main cover there of Grimston. So, oh, beautiful, everyone can see that. So in fact, the trouble started, you can see here, there are a couple of kids in this huge city and there's this big flood coming right through the centre. And I had, the idea for this book came about because I got angry. A couple of years ago, about 5 years ago, I thought, you know what, I don't think governments around the world are paying enough attention to the environment. I think they're worried about money and they're worried about buildings and they're worried about big business, but they're not really worrying about the environment enough. And so I thought, okay, what if They keep not being so worried about it, and they keep talking about lots of other things, and something starts to go wrong. So in fact, that's the very, very first idea I had for this book. Then I had to think, well, what is the thing that goes wrong, and where am I going to set my story? Then I thought about the city of London. And the city of London sits on a river, and the river runs all the way through that city out to the ocean, and between the city and the ocean is this. This is the Thames barrier in London, and basically it's a flood barrier. And that flood barrier was built because London sits really, really low to that river. And any time the river rose even just a fraction, the city would flood. And they thought, this can't happen. And in fact, it flooded once so badly that in 1953, over 300 people died. So they thought that can never, ever happen again. So they built this beautiful big flood barrier here, and it cost loads and loads of money, but there's a problem. This flood barrier was built in 1983. That's when they finished it. Now that's nearly 30 years ago. So at the time, they thought this is one of the best flood barriers in the world. This costs loads and loads of money. But since then, since 30 years ago, sea levels have been rising, storms seem to be getting worse than before, the weather is changing and the climate is changing. So sometimes some scientists now are saying one day that won't be enough. And that's what I needed. That was the little idea that I needed to show me what my trouble would be. The city of Grimston was going to have a flood barrier like that, and one day it was going to flood. One day it wasn't going to be enough. So that's how we got to have the city of Grimston flooding. So that's my trouble. Then I had to think, well, who's going to actually be inside my story? So hands up anyone from Gymea Bay who saw the name of the two main characters. Even one of them or two of them, whichever one. Yes.
Griffin and Isabella.
Yes. So on the left here, standing on the word Grimston, you have Griffin. Now he's kind of puny and weeny and he doesn't have any muscles at all, but he is super, super smart. And he is the one who works out how they can actually live in a flooded city. A city with no electricity, no computers, there are no shops, there are no cars, of course, because it's useless, they're all underwater. So he has to work out how can we create heat and light and get food and how can we live in a city. And to the right of him is Isabella. She is strong and feisty and she is very, very good with swords. And I would like to be Isabella. She's one of my favourite characters, but I'm no good with a butter knife. So that's partly why I would like to be Isabella, because she's very strong and good with knives. Now, there are two other main characters on this front cover here. So can I ask Tamworth? I don't think I've chatted to Tamworth yet. Can I ask Tamworth to have a close look at that cover? So you can see Griffin and Isabella quite easily, but there are two other main characters. One character, you can kind of see part of that character, and the other character, you can see the scene they're in, but you can't see them at all. So Tamworth, do you want to have a guess at where the other characters are?
Tamworth's not there.
Tamworth's not there. Tamworth's not there.
Are you there, Tamworth?
Are you there, Tamworth? No. Okay. Let's go to, who haven't I chatted too much yet? Beechwood. Can we go to Beechwood? Can anyone there see the other two main characters that are on the front cover? That's a bit tight, because they can't quite see the bottom of the book. Beechwood, where are the other two? Right up. Where do you think they are?
The eye under the word.
Beautiful. Yes, let's do that one. The eye, right down the bottom. Hopefully all of you can see. Yes, right underneath the word Grimston there is an eye. And I thought to myself, you know what, if all of this water has flooded into this city, where it wasn't before, surely it's woken up a couple of sea monsters that live on the bottom of the Northern Oceans, and those sea monsters now are sailing straight towards Grimston. Then I have to actually decide, well, what does it look like? Is it going to cause trouble? Is it going to be friends for the kids? What's it going to do? What does it look like? Now, the other character, there's one main character on that front cover there. Now, Corinda, can I ask Corinda, please? The last character on that front cover, where do you think that character is? You can't see this character at all, but you can see the scene that they're in.
He's in the aerotrope and his name's Xavier.
Yes. Thank you, Corinda. He's in the aerotrope and his name's Xavier. Now, the aerotrope's right at the top and it's a flying machine. Now, Xavier is 14, so he's a bit more muscly than the others, way more muscly than Griffin. He thinks he's very, very good looking. He thinks he's very, very good with the ladies. Griffin doesn't like him. Partly because of all his muscles, partly because he's a terrible, terrible show-off. And it drives Griffin nuts. But also, Griffin thinks he's hiding something. Xavier flies in on his flying machine one day, sneaks into the house where these kids live. He breaks into that house, and then they capture him. Actually tie him upside down from his ankles, and he's swinging upside down from the roof, and they say to him, "What do you want and why have you broken into our house?" And he says, "I just want to stay. I've been living on my own all this time in this flooded city, and I've got this flying machine, and I want to share it with you if I can stay." And Griffin doesn't want him staying. Griffin says, "Why should we trust you? You've just broken into our house. Maybe you're here to steal things or attack us." And Xavier says, "No, I just want to stay." But there is something about Xavier that Griffin doesn't trust. Partly all those muscles, but partly there is something he thinks he's hiding or lying about. So they're the main characters, the setting, and the trouble in Grimston. Now, what I'd like to do with you is actually see how very, very good you are at making trouble. I know here at Deborah Bay, loads of hands went up when I asked who was very good at making trouble.
Yes.
Good, all right. Okay. So this is what we're going to do. I'm actually going to talk you through. I'm going to talk you through a part. Pardon?
Oh, sorry, look this way.
Oh, it's there. Great. I'm actually going to talk you through. Oh, good. So I can face this way now. Great. I'm going to talk you through a section of Grimston, and this is for everybody here today. And I'm going to ask you at different points, what do you think is going to happen next, just to test how good you are at making trouble. Because you need to be good at making trouble in order to be an author. So, this part of the story, Griffin and Isabella actually live with 3 young kids called Bee, Fly and Ratty, and they are only 8 years old. So they live as a kind of family. And then Xavier does move in because they think, you know what, we need that flying machine. We can use it to go to different parts of the city and get new food and maybe find useful things, and maybe even one day we can fly right out of Grimston to where everybody else lives. So they do let him stay. But Xavier finds out that in the harbour that you can see in the background on that cover lives this guy called Captain Snedden. He lives in a big ship, and he actually threatens those kids, and he says, "I will leave you alone if you actually scavenge food for me and scavenge things that I need, gold and any money that you find, and bring it out to my ship." So they've basically been paying him all these years for protection, so that he won't pick on them, like a bully. So Xavier finds this out and says, "What? You pay this guy in the harbour just so he doesn't attack you? Well, that's crazy. Why are you doing that?" So he says, "I think you should stop." And Griffin says, "No, we can't do that. He said he'll attack us and pick on us if we don't keep paying him." And Xavier says, "Nah, we're strong enough. We've got a flying machine. Isabella's really good with swords. We can defend ourselves." So eventually they agree to stop paying Snedden. So, Deborah Bay in front of me, they agree to stop paying Snedden. Do you think Snedden's going to be happy about that? No. Do you think Snedden's going to be very, very upset? Yeah. Beautiful. So, now I want you to think. I'm going to ask Deborah Bay first, the first bit of trouble. He is definitely not happy about this. He wants them to bring food. That's the only way he can get food, because he's definitely afraid of water, and he never, ever leaves his ship. He has 2 big thugs who live with him, called Mouse and Tyrion. So what do you think could happen? What trouble do you think Captain Snedden could cause? He is definitely upset. You are absolutely right. So as an author, if you were writing a story like this, you could think, what kind of nasty thing would Captain Snedden do to them? Yes.
He could really badly hurt them?
Yes. So he doesn't leave the ship at all, so he might send his 2 big thugs to really badly hurt them. What else might he do? Yes.
He might take all their food.
He might break in, and they actually have a big, beautiful greenhouse on the top of their building, so he might just come in and take everything from that beautiful garden. What else could he do?
He could get the ship running to where they live.
Oh, what if he does that? If he actually, because he's got these huge, big chains that keep that ship in place? What if you just took all those chains up, sailed straight in and rammed into their building? Oh, that's a good bit of trouble. What else did Snedden do? Because I'm guessing you already know that he's nasty.
Yeah.
He would get really, really angry and do anything. So ramming a ship into where kids live, that's exactly the kind of nasty person we're dealing with. What other kind of trouble do you think you could cause? Oh, I've asked you before. Who haven't I asked yet? Anything. What trouble could he cause?
Because then his snake
Captain Snedden wears around his neck a snake, a poisonous tiger snake. He could just get his henchmen to let it loose in their house. Hey, nice work. Beautiful. This is what happens though. Snedden is definitely not happy, and so what he does is he sends his 2 thugs, which some of you did say, to break into their house. And in fact, the day that he chooses to send those thugs in, Isabella and Xavier are gone. They're out actually scavenging, so there's only Griffin and the 3 little kids. Now those 2 big guys come in, they start smashing things up, pushing books off shelves, dropping things and smashing them on the floor. Finally, Griffin says, okay, we'll start paying you again. And they say, actually, that's not the only thing we want. We also want that flying machine that's up on your roof. No, you can't take the flying machine, we need that. But they've got no choice. These men start to get really nasty, start pushing them around. They go, all right, you can have it. So they go upstairs to the roof. Now, I'm going to ask, who haven't I asked? Beechwood. I'm going to ask Beechwood. I need you to create trouble now. We've had Gymea Bay creating lots of lovely trouble just then. What happens is, as they go up onto the roof, they've kind of got 2 choices now. Do they really let these guys have the flying machine? Or do they fight back? What do you think they do? Okay, so do you mainly think they're going to fight back?
Yes, we decided they should fight back.
Good. Yay! Because that's just so making trouble to get your people to fight back. So, they do. They fight back. They think, you know what, we can't give them our flying machine, we really need this. So, Xavier has been teaching Griffin some judo moves. I know about judo because, Beechwood, can I ask you to turn your mic off, please? Your microphone? Is that Beechwood with their microphone still on? Can we do it remotely from here? Oh, we can show. Okay. Alright. Okay, I'm going to keep going. So yes, they do want to cause trouble. So in fact, Griffin uses his very newly earned judo skills to upset Mouse. He teases Mouse, and Mouse starts running straight for him while he's on the top of this roof. And Griffin, who kind of just pretends he was really scared and looked all puny and lonely, he then grabs Mouse in this huge judo move, grabs him, and I know you can do this because when I was learning judo, I was really skinny and little, and I used to throw men 3 times as big as me. If you get them in the right position, you can actually twist them and throw them over the edge. Right into the river far below. Now, Mouse's buddy can't believe it. How did this puny, skinny little boy just throw my best friend? Actually, he says it like this. How did you just throw my best friend over the edge? This is not very smart. And so, he starts running for Griffin as well and thinks, you just throw my friend over the edge, I'm coming to get you. So the other little kids are waiting. They're on either side of this big rope. And as soon as that boy, that man starts running towards them, they straighten the rope, trips him over, catches on it, whoa! Both of them go over the edge of the building into the river. Yes. And this is partly why I love telling stories too, because you can think, I want sometimes the little guy to win. And puny little Griffin, who's never beaten up anyone in his life, barely even stood on an ant, wins. So, who though now thinks that that will be the end of it? So can I ask now, who can I ask? Tamworth isn't there. Corinda, can I ask Corinda please? Do you think now that Griffin's thrown those 2 big studs over the edge of the building, is that the end of their troubles? Or do you think there'll be more trouble?
I think it's going to be more trouble.
Yes, now you've got to remember too when you tell your stories, each bit of trouble has to actually be worse or more exciting than the trouble that happened before. So this is what happens next, because I'm running out of time now. Snedden is now furious. He has never been so furious with these kids. So what he does is this. He not only sends his henchmen to kind of bully them around and try and harass them, he sends his two henchmen, his two big thugs, into the house while it's night time. He then kidnaps one of the little 8-year-old girls called Fly. And they cover her mouth up and they wrap her up tightly. They take Fly out of the building and across to the building across the way. They tie her up to this pole and it is raining. It is storming and thundering down. Fly is left on the roof next door. Everybody wakes up the next morning and thinks, where is Fly? And they search the house and they're frantic. They know something bad has happened and they know that probably Snedden is behind it. So they then finally, from the top of their roof, see Fly on the roof next door. She looks blue in the face. Her hair is dangling down and she's completely tied up and they know that something is seriously wrong and they have no idea how long she's been there. So they rush across with these pulley systems to the building next door. They take her inside their building and she's cold, she's freezing and she is barely breathing. Isabella, remember I told you she's very, very good with swords, she is furious. She has had enough. The worst thing you can do to Isabella is to hurt one of these little kids. That is the seriously worst thing you can do. So, Griffin knows this, so he says, please Isabella, let's just stop now, because each time something happens it's worse than before. So please, 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 can we stop? Promise me you won't get your revenge. And she says, okay. And then they all go to sleep. But when Isabella can't sleep, she just thinks he's going to keep going, this guy, he's going to keep doing this bad stuff. So she decides, I have to have revenge. So she sneaks out of the building while everybody else is asleep. She gets into this little dinghy and she rows out into the harbour. Now it's still dark. The sun just starts to come up so she can see the big silhouette of Snedden's ship in the harbour and she's heading straight towards that ship. Now remember, as a writer, you have two choices. One, she can reach the ship, or two, something else can go wrong. So as she's sailing out to that ship, something actually does go wrong. Now, let's see, who haven't I asked? St. Michael's. I haven't asked St. Michael's for a while. What do you think might go wrong? She's in this tiny little blow-up dinghy. She is sailing out to that big ship. All she has to do is get to that ship and she's going to have her revenge on Snedden. What do you think goes wrong? Let's take that up. I think I heard that right. Do you think while she's out there in her little boat sailing towards the ship, do you think a sea monster gets her? Yes, all right. Let's go with that idea. I like that idea a lot. As she is sailing out in the ship, and this is how you need to think of your stories. You could easily make it that Isabella makes that ship, she climbs onto that ship, and she has a fight with Snedden. But in some ways that's a little bit too easy. So you've got to create trouble for your characters. As she's sailing out to that ship, she actually sees a sea monster. Now they've heard rumours about these sea monsters. They've heard people say, I think there are sea monsters, I think they're coming towards Grimston, but they've never seen them before. Isabella now comes face to face with a sea monster in the middle of the harbour. Now what I'd like to do is, I'd like to come back to our board, because what we're going to do now is, here. I want to come back to our board just here, because I'm actually going to play now with a little bit more troublemaking. Just here. Now what I've got here, I've got in front of me the idea of Isabella actually meeting the sea monster. And so it's not a bad idea. I think it's kind of exciting. And certainly when I thought of this idea, I thought, great, Isabella 12 years old. All she has is a blow-up dinghy and a sword, and she has to face this huge sea monster. So it's kind of an exciting idea, but I think the way that I've written this idea is a little bit sloppy and it's not very good. So what I want to do now, I'm going to ask each of the schools to try and help me rewrite this bad paragraph and see if we can make it any better. So I'm going to read it out now so we can all make sure we can read it. Hopefully you can see those words clearly enough. So this is a good idea, but I think the words are very sloppy. So what I'm going to ask all of you now is to see what words you would change to help to make this a much, much better paragraph. Because at the moment, it's a very, very bad paragraph. So, here we go. She stared at the huge green beast. She flicked her curly hair, her long curly hair out of her eyes. Her heart pounded in fear. The beast roared a huge roar into the air. She cried out in fear, closed her eyes and whispered quietly, "I am scared." Now, there are a lot of problems, I think, in my... Is it a fire drill? Should we all run? Now, this is what I'd like to do. I'm going to ask Guy Bay first. We don't have a fire here in our school. Is that up? Should we do something?
No. There's another video conference coming on. I'm just going to...
Oh, okay. Okay, so Guy Bay, have a look at that good idea, but those bad words that have been chosen to tell that story. What would you change? There's a couple of problems with that story that I don't like at all. So any words you would change, or any sentences you think are kind of silly sentences, or you don't think are kind of good enough to be in our story. Now every single story, every single sentence here has to earn its place in that story. If that sentence doesn't tell us something new, then you need to get rid of that sentence. So Guy Bay first. What are a couple of problems that you would change?
I would change huge to ginormous or...
And what's your name?
Carolee.
Carolee thinks that huge isn't great. And can I point out another problem with huge? You see here, we have huge. And you see down here, we've got huge. Anytime a word's been repeated, you don't want that because that's that says that it's a little bit of a lazy sentence. So, which one would you change? We can keep one. Which one would you change, Carolee?
First one.
First one. Let's get rid of this repeated huge here. And also, huge green beast doesn't give us a really big picture, a really clear picture of what this sea monster looks like. And that's what we want to give our readers. We want to kind of create a picture in their head of what this monster looks like. So, instead of huge, and even green's okay to tell us what colour it is, but what other words would you use to try and describe our sea monster? Scaly. Straight away, scaly is a much better word, isn't it? Because I can see it. So we're going to have, she stared at the scaly green beast. And we can see later maybe how big it is. Any other words that you would like to choose to put into it so our reader can really see what our sea beast looks like? Yes.
Change huge and loud. The second is huge.
Roared, a loud roar. You know what? Instead of huge, you're right. We need something like loud. But what's an even louder word than loud? Loud is a great word, but I want a nastier word. This is a huge, nasty, nasty beast. What would be a better word than loud? Yes.
Huge roar.
So we've got roared. Scream and roar are like two different things. I know what you mean, but we need, like, instead of loud, what's another kind of good word for loud that's really big? Yes. Yeah, those kind of words, yes? Frantic. He's probably not frantic. Isabella probably is. He's probably more what?
Brave.
Yeah, brave, and also fearsome. Like, he's huge, isn't he? So, the beast roared a huge roar, and the other problem with that, of course, is roared and roar is kind of the same word. So, let's go to, she stared at the scaly green beast, the beast roared a huge roar. So let's change roared and a huge roar, yes. Instead of roar, there's another big word we can use, which is bellowed. Bellowed a huge, roared a huge. Let's change this one here. this is a lovely big word, and it means it's not repeated. Bellow. And in fact, I'm not even sure we need huge, because a bellow is huge, isn't it? It's kind of quite a big, loud thing. So I reckon we don't even need this huge here at all.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe it'll work.
The beast bellowed into the air. That's a nice sentence. Now, can I go to St. Michael's now? I want to ask you, at the very end here, we've got this sentence that says, I am scared. Now, can we imagine that if a 12-year-old girl faces a big sea monster, she's going to be scared?
Yeah.
Yes. So this sentence tells us something we already know. So St. Michael, can I ask you, what sentence would you use instead? What sentence would be a sentence that tells us something we don't already know?
I am petrified.
I'm petrified is good, but it's kind of saying the same thing, and I think we already know she's petrified. Can I ask you as well, we already know how brave Isabella is. Do you think she'd be whispering something quietly? Because we already know how brave she is and how good she is with swords. She might actually start yelling rather than whispering. So what do you think we could change that last sentence to actually suit Isabella better?
Sorry. Maybe this is it. And she said, this is it.
This is it. So you think maybe she thinks she's done for, like she's never going to survive this. That's okay too. Do you think she would whisper that quietly?
No. Yes.
Okay, can I ask Beechwood? Let's decide that maybe she's not going to whisper quietly. Let's decide she's going to take this beast on. Let's decide that she's going to be feisty like she normally is. What do you think she would yell at this sea creature? So Beechwood, what do you reckon she would say?
We're just discussing that. Deborah, Willow, what do you think? Up into the microphone. She would scream out. She would scream out, this is it.
Yes. She doesn't want to whisper, does she? She wants to actually scream or cry. So she screamed, and what did she scream at that sea beast?
Jacob, have you got a suggestion?
Yeah, let's play.
Jacob, what did you say to the microphone? Dan, have you got a suggestion? No, we're sticking with this is it, Deborah.
This is it. It's very good as well. Can I ask Guy Bay? So we've now got Isabella. She's not going to whisper quietly because that's not the kind of character she is. She is a brave, brave character. What would she yell? She's got this big sea creature looming over the top of her. She holds her sword up high and she says,
You're on.
You're on. Nice. What else does she say?
Like scream out to help the Griffin.
Griffin! So she tries to call back to the palace to where they live to see if he can help. What else would she
Bring it on.
Bring it on! And that is the kind of character she is. What other things would she Ooh, so she would try and get the sea monster to help her attack the ship. Ooh, that's nice. And what else would she say? Off goes your head. Okay. Okay, so we've got a bad beginning. We've only got a few minutes left, so I'm going to have to wrap this up for a second. If we kept working on this for much longer, I reckon we could even make it much better. A few other things that I think you need to be careful of when you're writing is be as fussy as you can and try not to repeat things. Now, there are a few other things up here that I'm not happy with. One is her heart pounded in fear. Now, in fear is telling us that she's scared, but we know she's scared, don't we, because we can see it. I know at the end she tries to be brave, but she is facing this huge sea monster. So we don't want words like that, and in fact it's repeated down here as well. So we kind of don't want telling words like that. We want to see by how she acts that she is scared. So we're going to get rid of that, and we're going to get rid of that as well. And the other thing that I think is, at this point in the novel, we know quite a lot about Isabella, but we don't know anything about the sea monster. This is the first time we've seen the sea monster. So in this second sentence here, she flicked her long curly hair out of her eyes. We know she has long curly hair. I don't really care what's in her eyes at the moment. What I want to know is what the sea monster looks like. So what I would do is totally get rid of that whole second sentence, because I kind of already know that that's what she looks like. What I would like in here is more description of the sea monster, because I don't know yet exactly what he looks like. And this is what we're going to get you all to do for the next time that we meet. What I'd like is for all of you here and here, is to actually take this description of a sea monster and make it a little bit better than it is now, but also what I would like you to do is write what happens next. Because, what's your name? Nathan. You know when Nathan said, "Off goes your head," maybe that's not exactly what happens. Maybe that's what she says, but maybe things don't go very right. Remember, your job is to create trouble when you're an author. So, what you're going to do the next time we meet is literally answer this question: what happens next? So you're going to actually literally write the next paragraph in this story. And I'm going to be really, really excited to see what you actually do with these stories, because anything could happen next. Maybe she does start to fight this sea dragon. Maybe she gets close to taking his head off, or maybe he just eats her in one bite. He probably doesn't. So that's your task. So the teachers who are watching, I'm going to hand over because you're going to explain a little bit more. But thank you so much for being here today, and thank you to Guinea Bay. And I'm going to hand you over.
Thank you, Deborah.
You're welcome.
Everyone, give Deborah a big clap. So now, the next conference is on the 4th of November, and by the 4th of November we would like you to complete that task. So teachers, make sure you have recorded this task. We have to remember what happens next, create a great description of the sea monster, and what happens next. If you could email those answers, the best couple from each school, Deborah's going to go through them, and she'll be using that as part of the second video conference. So if you can have that emailed through by the 1st of November. Thank you very much. That's wonderful. And we'll see you again, all the schools, on the 4th of November, and Deborah will be able to continue on with this wonderful explanation of how she writes the stories. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you very much.